Okay, this is your 1 minute Q&A practice for your mock. So this is 1 minute Q&A. Ready? Mrs. Peterson, how old are you?
Past 60.
How far past 60?
Well, I really don't know because when I was born, they didn't have birth certificates.
No birth certificates? All you know is something over 60?
Well, we used to go with, like, if there were some cousins or something and they had another child, we would say we were all born the same year or something like that.
But you have been working for Mrs. Ticklenburg since 1974?
May 74.
And I guess you took care of little Anne and Robert, the two children?
Yes, when I went there that first day, she more or less just turned the house over to me.
And back about the time that this accident took place in 77, Anne was about what? About 9 years old?
Well, it depends on how old she is today. How old is she now? 11? Yes, she was about 9.
And Robert is what? About 2 years younger than that?
I think so.
So Mrs. Tinklenburg would have had small children around the house.
When?
In 1977. That is what she was worried about, wasn't it? The children coming home and getting there where the mirror was?
Yes.
And the mirror had been broken for some time. That is why she was. Okay, and on your Q&A, you have Betty Ann Clark, West Sherman Boulevard, Glendale, Arizona, J.C. Penney's, Park Central Mall, St. Joseph's Hospital, LPN, TWA, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Long Beach Grand Prix, Coke, and Bobby Franklin. This is your 225 Q&A mock for 5 minutes. Ready? What is your full name, please?
Betty Ann Clark.
What is your residence address?
4780 West Sherman Boulevard, and that is Glendale, Arizona.
How old are you?
I am 37.
Are you employed?
Yes, I am.
Where are you working?
At J.C. Penney's Park Central Mall.
What do you do there?
I am their electrologist.
Where were you employed on the day of the incident we are discussing here, which is March 15, 1983?
St. Joseph's Hospital, I believe.
And what was your position there?
I was an LPN.
What is that?
Licensed practical nurse.
Now, we're talking about an incident that occurred on March 15, 1983 on a TWA flight from Los Angeles to Phoenix. Do you remember being on that flight?
Yes.
Why were you on that flight?
I was returning from the Long Beach Grand Prix car races.
Have you flown often?
No.
How about since that day?
I have not flown since that day.
Was there any particular reason why you flew on TWA?
No.
Had you been drinking before you got on the plane at all? Any alcoholic beverages on that day?
No.
Before you got on the plane?
No, not that day.
Do you imbibe?
Very rarely.
Did you have any alcoholic beverages on the plane?
No.
Did you drink anything on the plane?
No, maybe a Coke. I don't remember, but I didn't drink. I don't drink, but very seldom. I know I didn't on the plane.
Do you remember if you had an assigned seat?
Yes.
As you got on the plane, you had a pass that told you to sit in a particular seat?
To sit in a seat, yes, I think so.
Do you remember clearly, Betty?
Not definitely, you know. I booked my flight in advance, and my boarding passes, I think, were all arranged before I left and before I came back. This was a booked passage, so I just assumed my seats were assigned.
All right. Do you remember a particular incident occurring on this flight involving either one or both of the airline stewardesses and either one or two male passengers on the flight involving a possible theft of some liquor miniatures?
Yes.
Do you have a recollection as to the passengers involved in the incident? Can you describe them?
One passenger, a man.
And describe him.
He was a man, late 20s. Do you want his actual build and size and weight?
Yes, anything that comes to your mind.
Okay, he was about medium height and medium weight, somewhere around 5'9" and 180 pounds. I don't remember anything remarkable about him. He was very casually dressed. He did have on a polyester jacket and a cowboy hat.
Do you remember, as far as the jacket, a color or a style?
I think it was yellow, and it was a leisure jacket, not a suit jacket.
Do you remember if he had a beard?
No, I don't.
Anything during the incident that would have told you what his name was?
No.
So if I told you that the individual that we are talking about is Bobby Franklin, that would only be because you have heard that information since then.
Right, yes, you told me that.
Do you remember whether anything led you to believe he was traveling with anybody or traveling alone?
Yes, after the incident he made mention of having friends with him. That's the only thing I knew. He was talking to people constantly around him, so I assumed he was with people.
I see. What was the very first time that your attention was directed or drawn to him, and any involvement between him and the stewardess?
It was when the plane had landed and we were either parked or taxiing. The stewardess and he got into a conversation about liquor bottles from the cart that was in the hallway.
Now, while you were in the air before you were actually on the ground, do you recall hearing or seeing anything that drew your attention to any kind of a commotion going on?
No commotion, but I remember him as being kind of loud, and he was talking to the people that were around him, and it seemed like they were just joking and laughing and being kind of loud. I was aware of him before the incident happened.
Where was he sitting in relation to where you were sitting?
He was sitting behind me on the other side of the aisle and on the left side facing the front of the plane, and I was on the right.
So you had to turn around to see him, right?
Yes, I turned around to see him.
Did you see this passenger take any liquor bottles from the liquor cart?
I have the feeling that I did. I know that I was not surprised when he was accused of taking them, and I am almost positive that I saw him take one because I remember thinking at the time that I knew he had the liquor on him, and why didn't he return it?
But you don't have any specific recollection to be able to say, yes, I looked and saw him take a bottle off the cart.
I think that when I was watching him, the stewardess wasn't present. He was joking and laughing and being kind of loud.
What next?
He was taking the little bottles off, and I think I remember seeing him stick it in the left-hand side of his jacket and maybe even give some to people. I think that's what the joke was, and I think that's what I remember.
Tell me specifically what you think you saw or heard that made you think he had taken some liquor miniatures.
I think I saw him take them before it ever happened, before he got into the discussion with the stewardess, because I knew that he had them. I do not have a vivid picture in my mind of him actually lifting a bottle off that beverage cart. That is what I'm telling you.
You remember when you heard the conversation between him and the stewardess, you weren't surprised?
No, I knew he had them.
Tell me what you remember about the conversation between him and the stewardess as to who said what.
Okay, I remember that she asked him to give back the liquor bottles, and at first he was reluctant. I think he denied having them, but then she said she knew that he had them and to give them back.
Then what happened?
This conversation went on for several minutes.